For much of the rainy season here in Southern California, the Wannabe's crew takes advantage of some of the really great hero dirt that the rain affords us in the low-lying areas. But when it starts to get hotter, we head up the mountain, and that means a lot of Big Bear trail riding and a lot of rocks. Now, for the loose dirt stuff, the tubeless systems that we run work really well, and most of the winter we don't have any issues. But invariably, as we get back into the rocks, we start popping tires. We've heard a lot of guys run moose systems instead of tubeless, especially in the front tire, and we think there's some potential advantages to that, but we're not quite ready to give up on tubeless for front tires just yet. So there's a couple of things that we want to investigate, and we want to share that journey with you guys. So we were out riding with BrokenEnduro this last weekend. About halfway through a 100-ish mile ride, I got a flat on the front, and it was kind of a weird flat in that usually you have some kind of a puncture somewhere in the tire carcass that you can find and identify, and a lot of times you can plug those pretty simply with the tubeless system, air back up, and on you go. In my case, however, what we found was that the bead had somehow torn or split underneath the rim of the tire, so even though we were adding air, it was just leaking back out, and it was leaking fast enough that the slime that I have in that tire just wasn't able to hold. Now, the weird part about that is the tubeless system was holding fine. We checked the high pressure tube, had 120 PSI in that, so we know that we have a bead lock, and I'm not quite sure how you can have a bead lock plus a leaking bead. Doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So we're gonna tear this front tire off, and we're gonna take a look at what's going on in there, and then I'm gonna explore some options, maybe airing the tubeless system up a little higher in the front for some of the rocky terrain. Now I typically run maybe 6 PSI in the front for most of the riding that I do, and I'm thinking taking that up to 8, 10, maybe even 12 for some of the Big Bear riding to see how that does and see if that helps. I'm also going to be trying a couple of different tires over the course of the summer season. John and I are pretty excited to get into some Pirellis and some Michelins that we've had our eye on for a little bit and give those a good review too. So what we're going to do is tear this front tire off today, see if we can figure out what's going on, where the failure point was. We'll show you that process. I did notice that I've got slime leaking out of the back tire as well, but when I check the tire pressure on the back, I see that I've still got about 6 PSI in there, which is right where I left it. So I feel pretty good about what's happened with the rear tire. Obviously taking some of those hits on the rocks opened the bead up enough for slime to leak out, but not enough for me to lose pressure in that tire. So I think that worked out really nicely. Not so much luck on the front. Now I will say, in Tubeless' defense, I rode the second half of the ride through all the rocky shit with a completely flat front tire. I mean, 0 PSI, squishy as shit. I'm sure that I've completely destroyed the sidewalls of this tire. If you run them flat long enough, you know they get chewed up by the rim, etc. And I will say that hitting the rocks with a 0 PSI front tire was not a fun experience. I was really worried about my rim for quite a bit of the ride. I did back off my speed substantially to try to avoid some of those nastiest impacts, and I did a lot of wheeling over stuff. But in Tubeless' defense, they got me through the ride. The bead lock function of the tubeless system kept the tire in place even though it was completely flat, and I was able to finish my ride and have a great day anyway. So let's tear this open, figure out what's going on, and then let's talk about some next steps to solve this problem.
I'm wondering if maybe my front tire lost some air. Shit. Here, no. Nope, high pressure's up there. Notice hitting the rocks pretty hard, and there's not much in the tire. So.
You getting that rim shot?
Yeah, well, you hit the tubeless carcass, but you can tell the tire's low. Yeah, that's plenty. I think it just took a good hit and like broke the bead enough to let air out.
Oh, I can see it bubbling.
Is it bubbling out?
See it bubbling?
Shit, why?
Well, I don't know how much air you put in it, but that's
more than that.
Definitely not much.
This is one of the spots that was off the bead and leaking. And the bead of the tire is fine. I did think it was kind of weird that I couldn't get it to hold air just around the bead. So I'm gonna go clean this mess up, and then I'll show you guys what I think probably happened here and how to prevent it. So after taking the tire off, getting all the slime cleaned out of it and inspecting everything, I don't find any damage in the bead of the tire. There's one spot on the rim here where it's maybe bent just a tiny bit, but really nothing that I think is actually a failure point. So I'm surmising what happened here is actually that one of the hits that I took on the trail, we were going pretty fast, again, Big Bear, nasty, hard rocks. Pretty sure that the edge of a rock punched in the tire in a way that pulled the bead out of the seat. And because of the tubeless system's constant pressure on the full bead, I think that the tubeless carcass filled in the space against the rim and actually kept the tire from seating back in again. What I should have done on the trail is I should have let all the air pressure out of the inner high pressure tube, let the bead sink back in, and then refill the inner high pressure tube, and I think that would have reset the bead's seal, and I would have been good to go. But of course, that's a lesson learned with the comfort of the shop and not with the pressure of 15 guys that you're holding up on the trail. So that's, I think, my lesson learned for next time. I am gonna go ahead and get a new front tire. I've got a Pirelli on order that I wanna do a review of anyway, so we'll let you guys know what we think of that. But I've been contemplating switching over to Moose, but I don't think I'm quite ready to do that yet. At some point I want to. I've never run them, and we do want to do a review and explain how we feel about the Moose, but I think that there's a few things that I want to do with Tubeless first. Like I mentioned, I want to try on these rocky sections, airing up the tire itself just a little bit higher, maybe 8 to 10 PSI. I know I give up a little bit of traction on the front end doing that, but I think it can take some of the hits from the rocks a little bit better. And now keeping in mind that you may have to reset the bead of the tubeless system if you get this kind of bead side flat like I did. I think that probably would have got me going with minimal effort back on the trail. So that's my lesson for today. I'm gonna go ahead, I've got the new tire coming in a couple of days. I'm gonna get that installed up on here, and we'll get back on the trail and let you guys know what we think of those Pirellis. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to check out our line of helmet chin mounts for action cameras, GoPro, and other models. They're the best way to get point of view footage with a custom fit to your helmet that's not gonna fall off or drill nasty holes in your helmet, and to get footage like this. From your rides so that your viewers get the best perspective and the best point of view. Thanks, guys. See you next time.